Number 1, Endocrinologist reveals the simple daily habit that prevents high blood sugar after 60. It is truly remarkable how much crucial information about managing blood sugar has been overlooked, despite extensive clinical research spanning over a decade. During this same period, an astounding number of individuals, over 80 million Americans, have received a blood sugar diagnosis. They were typically advised to reduce their sugar intake and were often sent home with a prescription. What they were not informed about, however, is the power of certain daily habits that can significantly impact their health, simply because these beneficial practices do not come in a pill bottle. A significant study conducted in 2021 at the University of Chicago, which followed more than 44,000 adults over the age of 60 for 11 years, identified 5 specific daily habits. When practiced together, these habits demonstrated the capacity to reduce fasting blood sugar levels by an impressive 52%, enhance insulin sensitivity in as little as 3 weeks, and in patients working alongside their doctors have supported a meaningful reduction in the need for medication. A 52% reduction is not a minor statistical fluctuation. It represents a substantial improvement. These habits will be presented in order, from what is genuinely helpful to what can only be described as transformational, with the first habit on this list having a more profound impact on blood sugar than the other 4 combined. It is particularly striking that this top habit is being completely ignored by approximately 90% of seniors. Upon learning what it is, many will likely feel a sense of frustration that this knowledge was not shared with them sooner. The core issue for many individuals, especially as they age, revolves around a phenomenon known as insulin receptor downregulation. In a younger body, insulin functions like a key that perfectly fits a lock on cells, allowing glucose to enter and thus lowering blood sugar levels. However, over time, particularly with prolonged exposure to elevated glucose, these cellular locks begin to change shape, becoming less responsive to the insulin key. This leads to insulin resistance, a state where cells become less sensitive to insulin's signal. Imagine a door lock that has been jammed repeatedly. The key may still fit, but it no longer turns smoothly to open the door. Insulin and glucose are present, but the connection between them is impaired. All 5 of the habits to be discussed target this specific mechanism of insulin resistance, approaching it from entirely different biological entry points, which is why their combined effect is far greater than any single habit practiced in isolation. Beginning with Habit 5, which requires only about 30 seconds and has been shown in research from the University of Paris to improve insulin receptor sensitivity by up to 22% on its own, we focus on morning hydration. This means drinking 16 to 20 ounces of water before consuming coffee, eating anything, or even checking your phone. While this might sound surprisingly simple for a blood sugar strategy, the underlying mechanism is not what one might initially expect. After the age of 65, the body's sensitivity to thirst signals can decline, meaning that individuals may be chronically operating at a cellular hydration level that is 8 to 12% below optimal, without ever feeling thirsty or sensing that anything is wrong. This dehydration has a direct impact on blood sugar. When cells are even mildly dehydrated, glucose becomes more concentrated in the bloodstream, leading to higher blood sugar readings, not due to increased food intake or pancreatic failure, but simply because the ratio of glucose to fluid has shifted, particularly after a night's sleep. Furthermore, research published in the Journal of Clinical Endocrinology and Metabolism indicates that adequate morning hydration helps suppress a hormone called vasopressin, also known as ADH or antidiuretic hormone. When vasopressin levels are elevated due to overnight dehydration, it signals the liver to release stored glucose into the bloodstream, even before breakfast. This is why some individuals may find their fasting glucose levels are higher than anticipated before consuming any food. The practical application is straightforward. Keep a 20-ounce glass of water by your bedside and drink it the moment you get out of bed, before anything else. Plain, filtered water is ideal, and a squeeze of lemon can actually be beneficial, as will be explained in Habit 4, where a surprising connection exists. Habit 4 builds upon the foundation laid by morning hydration. While morning water intake helps to suppress vasopressin and stabilize your pre-breakfast baseline, a protein-first breakfast ensures that the first food your body encounters is optimized for a gentle glucose challenge. This approach is more important than the specific protein source itself, as understanding the underlying mechanism will prevent future missteps in breakfast choices. When protein is consumed first, such as from eggs, Greek yogurt, or cottage cheese, the gut releases a hormone called GLP-1. This is the same hormone that many modern diabetes medications aim to mimic synthetically. Naturally produced GLP-1 has three key effects. It slows down the emptying of the stomach, leading to a more gradual release of glucose. It stimulates the pancreas to release insulin in response to glucose. And it suppresses glucagon, the hormone that signals the liver to release stored glucose. Consuming protein first at breakfast triggers all these beneficial responses simultaneously. A study in diabetes care found that prioritizing protein and fat before carbohydrates reduced post-meal glucose levels by 36 to 44% compared to eating carbohydrates first. Consider the contrast. A breakfast of oatmeal with banana, once thought to be heart-healthy, can act like a glucose cannon, especially when insulin receptors have been compromised by overnight dehydration. By shifting to a breakfast of 2 eggs and half an avocado, followed by a smaller portion of oatmeal or berries, the carbohydrates are no longer the initial trigger. This simple change in order has led to dramatic drops in fasting glucose levels, without any change in medication. For those who don't eat eggs, Greek yogurt, paneer, or cottage cheese serve as excellent alternatives. The principle is protein first. Moving on to Habit 3, which involves a simple change to how commonly eaten foods are prepared, we look at cold, cooked, resistant starch. The science behind this habit is particularly fascinating. When starchy foods like rice, potatoes, or lentils are cooked and then cooled completely in the refrigerator, their starch molecules rearrange into structures known as retrograde resistant starch. This structural change makes them more resistant to digestion in the small intestine. Imagine regular cooked starch as a loose bundle of strings, easily broken down into glucose. When cooled, these strings become tightly knotted, meaning digestive enzymes work more slowly, releasing glucose over 2 to 3 hours instead of rapidly. This results in a flattened blood sugar spike. Research shows that cooling cooked potatoes overnight and eating them cold can reduce their glycemic response by up to 35%, significantly lowering their glycemic index. The protocol is to cook these starchy foods the night before, refrigerate them, and then consume them cold or at room temperature the next day. This can be in the form of cold potato salad or rice with vegetables. The crucial point is that reheating these foods destroys the resistant starch structure, reversing the beneficial effect. Before delving into Habit 2, it's important to mention a comprehensive guide that further elaborates on these principles, particularly focusing on evening meal protocols. The resistant starch concept is one of 3 evening meal strategies outlined, emphasizing how dinner choices directly influence overnight blood sugar levels. By incorporating resistant starch into lunch and dinner, the lower glucose patterns established by a protein-first breakfast are maintained throughout the day. This cumulative effect means that by dinner time, the daily glucose curve looks significantly different from that of someone consuming the same calories but prepared and ordered differently. This optimized glucose profile at dinner is what allows Habit 2 to be maximally effective. Now, regarding Habit 2, which involves a brief walk 10 minutes after dinner, it's vital to understand its profound impact. Research from George Washington University has demonstrated that short, post-meal walks are more effective than a single, longer daily workout. When we sit after dinner, our muscles are at rest and require very little glucose. The glucose from the meal then competes for limited uptake capacity in the bloodstream, leading to elevated blood sugar. The moment we start moving, even with slow walking, our muscle cells activate a glucose transporter called GLUT4. This transporter physically moves glucose from the bloodstream into muscle tissue, and its activation is independent of insulin. A study by Dr. Loretta DiPietro found that 3 15-minute post-meal walks reduced the 24-hour blood sugar area under the curve by 58% more than one 30-minute walk. For older adults, a 10-minute walk around the block or even around the living room is sufficient, as the GLUT4 mechanism activates at the start of movement. For those on medication like metformin, it's important to note that while it primarily works on the liver to reduce overnight glucose production, it has a limited effect on post-meal spikes. This 10-minute walk complements medication by addressing a different aspect of glucose metabolism. Finally, we arrive at habit 1, the most impactful of them all: sleep. The quality and timing of deep sleep are paramount. Between 2 and 4 a.m., the body initiates the dawn phenomenon, with rising cortisol levels preparing for waking and signaling the liver to release stored glucose. While this is normal, in individuals with insulin resistance and fragmented sleep, this cortisol spike can be earlier, larger, and longer than it should be. This results in a significantly greater release of glucose from the liver, which remains in the bloodstream for hours before any food is consumed. This is why some individuals may wake with elevated fasting glucose numbers even after following all other recommendations the night before. A single night of partial sleep deprivation can increase insulin resistance by 25% the following day. This highlights a significant gap in how diabetes is managed, as questions about sleep quality, bedroom temperature, and nighttime awakenings are often overlooked. The solution involves 2 simple changes. Maintaining a room temperature between 65 and 68 degrees Fahrenheit is crucial for entering deep sleep, where insulin sensitivity is restored, and establishing a consistent bedtime. A stable sleep-wake cycle helps regulate cortisol timing, preventing exaggerated spikes. Patricia's fasting glucose, for instance, dropped from 198 to 112 after 8 weeks by implementing these habits, enabling her endocrinologist to consider reducing medication rather than increasing it. The synergy of these 5 habits: morning hydration, protein-first breakfast, cold-resistant starch, post-dinner walks, and quality sleep, creates a continuous system that compounds its effects far beyond what any single intervention can achieve. To begin, tonight, place a glass of water by your bedside. Tomorrow morning, drink it first. Then, prioritize protein for breakfast. This week, prepare a starchy food ahead of time and try it cold or at room temperature. Schedule a 10-minute walk after dinner and set a consistent bedtime with a cool bedroom temperature. These habits are simple, cost-effective, and require no special equipment, yet they address the core mechanisms that influence blood sugar management.